Okay, so today for this session, we want to talk about, leading through these changing times, because we have been going through a bit much the past couple of years, but there's always more change to come. And, I think the women that we have here have some great personal stories and examples that everyone can learn from, and I would love to just start a conversation.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Perfect. So, Cindy, we're going to start with you, but based on our previous conversations as a group, it's just going to go all over the place, and just bear with us and stick with us, because, this is a fun group of ladies, so just hold on. So we're going to start with, Cindy, can you describe a specific moment or experience where you had to lead effectively during a period of transformation and uncertainty?
So I'm going to use an example that many of us had, but it was transformational. That for me, it was the most immediate requirement for transformation that I had to ever do and hope to ever do again, which was COVID, right? And at the time, I was the CIO for Deluxe. For those who know Deluxe, it was at the time the largest post-production. We were a vendor to the studios and Netflix and Amazon, and it's a very tech-heavy industry. It is very on-premise industry, and you couldn't run it if you couldn't come into the office. So that's kind of the what's special about it. The why it was important is we were completely dependent profitability-wise on whether or not we were doing business. And if we couldn't figure out immediately how to do this business remotely, we weren't going to have any income coming in. And then if you think about it, every single employee understood that immediately. And so we had the people issue of, I'm going to lose my job, I'm not going to be able to sustain my family. And on top of that, COVID, right? And so, we got special dispensation as a lot of media companies did, because, media's life necessary, right? So we could bring some people in, but we had consistent COVID outbreaks, and an entire team would come in and work, and then the entire team would be gone. And we'd have to deal with that. So that's the why it was important. And so everybody in the company recognized it was important. And then kind of what did we end up doing about it that I think was to me special was, one, we were technology focused, right? This technology was going to allow us to do this or not allow us to do it. So it became an opportunity where I literally ended up running it for the company, not the business, no one else, right? Obviously, everybody participated, but because IT really was going to drive whether we could do it or not, we ended up running it. And I ended up running it from facilities, people, technology, all of it. And it took, why I think we were able to be successful with it, and we were, thank the Lord, is because of a number of things that everybody has talked about today. One is collaboration. To make it successful, we had to collaborate with everyone, right? So we had small teams for each workflow trying to work. We had our vendors in trying to help us. We had our customers, because, again, we were a vendor, and everybody's biggest concern with a post-production house is my content going to get pirated, right? And so everybody was suspicious about whether or not we were putting appropriate controls in, so we had to talk while we were making decisions. We had vendors and us, and we were talking to the security people, content security people at the studio, saying, are you going to be okay with this? So it was really, to me, that whole, getting small core teams, collaborating, seeing the value, and then just doing it. And it was a lot of start and iterate. Parts of it worked, parts of it didn't, and we just kept going until we resolved it. And for me, it was probably one of the most satisfying things that I've done. I don't ever want to do it again. But it also, when you talk about the results of these things, because we're talking leadership, the pride that people took over every workflow that we would get up, because we would get one up at a time, like, okay, we just got localization up, and we can do it in India, and we can do it in the US. We can't do it in UK yet. And then we just keep peeling it off and celebrating each of them, and we could see the difference, right? We would be able to do work or not, right? And so to me, that was amazing. And then the last thing I want to say, just kind of in this journey, is what do I think made that happen? I think it's prepping, right? Annie and I were talking about this in prepping for this call. I had to have relationships in place, right? You have to have relationships that you can use when some sort of leadership challenge happens, right? If you have people who trust you and know you're going to do the best that you can, it gives you a lot of leeway, right? So credibility, relationships, understanding of the business, and then I would say staying ahead of technology, right? And so for us, we had moved a ton of stuff to the cloud, but post-production was one of the last things to move because it was so intensive on the size of the files and latency issues and things like that. And so if we had not been as far through the journey, we wouldn't have been able to react fast enough. And as we talk about AI, it's the same thing. If we don't stay ahead of technology changes, even before we know we have to use it in our company, we're going to get bit. And, that's kind of the story. So I was trying to tie it to the other stuff we've talked about today, but I think you bring a lot through a big change, and you use your whole toolkit.
And I think we all have COVID stories, and
everybody has a COVID story. Yes.
And pre-COVID, there was a lot of resistance to change.
Oh my God! By our customers, by the auditors, and by our employees, right? Because they knew how to do it the way they did it. I mean, my biggest thing was taking Final Cut Pro 7 away from people, right? That had been out of use, for 10 years, and they were still using it every day because they knew how to do exactly what they needed to do that way. Yeah,
and
resistance was very
forced
high.
Change on some people that may not have been ready or comfortable. How did you support your team through that, insecurity of we have to do this?
I think that was my point at the beginning of the why. I didn't have to do that because they could see it. Nice. Right? Everybody saw it. Everybody bought in. Everybody wanted this to work. And, for I'm sure lots of us, that change was sustained. Not 100%, right? Because some stuff they liked better before, right? But it fundamentally changed the way we did business forever. And it's like, any big challenge like this, it does change. It is a step change that happens.
Yeah. And that was definitely a time from a production standpoint. So Annie, do you have some stories that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think those are great, Cindy, because that all the stuff that had to happen. I mean, it's a pretty big lift. I was just thinking about you too, because I was like, oh my gosh, okay, from the IT side of things. But I think also, speaking of the human side, we were talking about the human side earlier. That's actually a really, I think, interesting thing that hit me as a leader at Universal was it was funny during the pandemic because we all had to all of a sudden we were we tested one day, I think, let's all work from home one day, and then they were like, okay, next day, which was a Friday, they're like, everyone's working from home. So it kind of all took us by surprise. We had never used really Teams that much, Microsoft Teams and all that stuff, but what was interesting was I'm actually inherently, I know people won't believe this, but I am inherently an introvert. Yes, I don't really like people. And the thing is, I am. And I was like, wow, this is great, working from home. I don't have to talk to anybody. I can just kind of hang out. It's so great. And then I realized as a leader, I was like, wait, why is so-and-so so down and it's so great working from home, isn't it? And then as we started talking through with all of our people, and that was the thing, was because I'm an introvert, I actually really had to intentionally think to myself, okay, let me actually reach out to people and see how they're feeling. Oh, you don't like this? Oh, you're right, that's right, you're an extrovert. Oh, and you're by yourself at home. Oh no. So it as a leader, it really helped me stretch to kind of go, okay, you really have to, especially as an introvert, make sure you reach out, check on people, like talk to them, and so much was going on at that time too, right, with the George Floyd stuff and everything, and it was like you needed to, people were just isolated and they just wanted to talk, right? And so I think that was the biggest thing that we actually did as a film technology organization. Honestly, it wasn't anything to do with technical or like production or anything. It was really just, let's give space to people to be able to actually talk through, like, what are they feeling? And we it was great. I have to give props to Universal Pictures because they really focus all the way up from like Donna Langley, our chairman, who's awesome, by the way, awesome woman. We got to bring her in one day to talk. But she really felt that mental health was really important, and she had someone on her team too as well that was shepherding all that. And so it was really a great culmination, honestly. Like, it was probably the best that could have happened during a pandemic for our company, really, to bring us all closer as people and as humans, and to understand, like, wow, this is a really stressful, weird situation. How do we actually go about doing this? How do we work together, right? And then we're still doing that now, actually, speaking of leading through change, is like, now that we're back in the office, but people are still hybrid, and it's like still like, kind of still trying to figure out this new way of working and everything. So I think the interesting thing is, like, there was this culmination of, yes, get the work done and get the figured out, and like, we'll just, let's figure it out. But at the same time, too, it was like, I think it kind of brought people a little closer to being a little bit more human. And for introverts like me, it was like, it was an exercise in, like,
Well,
oh my
don't you
gosh.
think, too, I mean, it was interesting, I'm sure all of us have this, right? Like, people have their kids next to them, their dogs are jumping on them. Like, so you did see people in a much more personal situations than you ever did before. Like, I remember the chief legal counsel and his, daughter was like playing with his hair while he was trying to explain something. And I was like, oh, you're never gonna live this down, right?
Yeah,
and we did learn more about our coworkers than they probably wanted us to know, right?
Yeah. If I could just add something just based on what you were saying about the value of partnerships. So we had, similar experience where we had to scale up really quickly. And so we had sized our remote access environment for, like 100 concurrent people. And so with very little notice, we had to go up to 1,200. And so, it was a little bit of a panic among the team to say, like, how are we going to, get new hardware in and set this whole environment up? And so what was great is that Citrix really worked with us, and I will say the other thing I wanted to point out is, you never know where the great ideas are going to come from, because it was someone on our team said, we have a whole disaster recovery environment. If we can just get Citrix to agree, we can leverage that environment. And so that's what really helped us, is that, somebody had a great idea, and then we had a strong partnership. We went to Citrix and we said, look, this is unusual times. We know that you normally don't allow this, but, we are good for buying the licenses and getting there with new equipment. But for right now, we need to leverage our disaster recovery environment. And that's how we, actually supported the initial switch to going home. So yeah, those were a couple points I wanted to point out.
And so I'm the non-entertainment person on this set. But
very important
although
perspective,
it was so at UCLA, we were actually going through an identity crisis during the time the pandemic hit, and so we were transforming our own internal units and really focusing on my department focuses specifically on research technologies, and so we were shedding some of the things that we belonged in another department and really just focusing on what was really our core function. But it was all through the pandemic, and so there was a lot of just fear from people within our department, like, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me? I'm remote, I don't feel like I belong anywhere. We actually did have to move people to a new department. But in talking about leading through change, it was about the people. It was about, we're not going to just kick you out. We're not going to just make you a non-part of this organization. We're going to walk this journey with you. And I think just, with leadership and leading through change, it is really about the people, and it's really about whatever it is, if it's a pandemic, it's the identity crisis that we went through, it's a combination of all of that. But it is, how do you walk with someone and take that journey with them? And I think leadership, especially through change, that's very important to have.
And let me ask you a question. So did you notice that it was easier to work with if everybody, including the upper ranks of leadership, actually got that? Or were you trying to do that just like in a microcosm across, your group?
Everyone didn't get it. Absolutely did not get it. And but I think it's important to always understand the human part of things, the human aspect of things. And the ones that didn't get it, it was a rough time, through the pandemic and through even outside of the pandemic today. There's the ones, I think, organizations who made it well through the pandemic are the ones who really thought about the people, and they thought about the relationships, and they thought about how to actually extend a hand to people. And it's not just about the work. It is about the work and the outcomes, but it really is about the people who are actually the ones who are doing the work.
Yeah, and I think it's easier when you have from the top down this understanding that, you got to focus on people and their mental health and that sort of thing, but you don't always have that, right? You don't always have the leadership that understands that piece. And so you then, like, as a leader, maybe in a more of a middle management place, you're also having to manage up, basically, and helping your leaders understand. It's an opposite kind of weird thing, but helping them understand, like, what they need to do better in order to lead people through change.
So I think COVID definitely had some great examples and scenarios for us to learn from. But even in recent times, I mean, we've got our strikes happening. We've got, within the tech space itself, there's been a lot of uncertainty and just, a lot of impact across our teams. Annie, do you have some examples of, like, from a leadership perspective, what do you think those key skill sets are in order to help teams through uncertain times?
Oh, throw the big hard one on me, huh? Yeah. No,
You can handle it.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, obviously with the strikes and everything, and then everything was basically shut down, right? And you're the first thing to go is tech, right? It's technology. You're always, like, worried about that. But what I did was I was like, all right, wait, we got some downtime. Let's do all these things that we said we, kept shelving because we didn't have time to do it and everything. And it was like, we're constantly trying to, like, help out with the productions and stuff. So we actually took the time and, like, thoughtfully said, well, at least I did. I was just kind of going through the list and then, taking in other folks, like other people on my team's, like, ideas as to, like, okay, what is important? What do we got to get accomplished? What do we need to do before we get the crazy influx of, like, when the strikes are over again and we can start productions again? So that was one thing, was, like, I think people needing, like, knowing that they have a task ahead and they have a goal and they, and they're working towards something, right? That's really important. And again, coming down to the people thing, it's like that whole communication and just making sure everyone's involved, everyone's getting in place, right? And, like, making sure that everyone has a say on how things work. And so that's what we really did, was just like, okay, let's, focus on that part. The other thing, too, I was actually going through a time where we actually had figured out a big production technology strategy thing that had taken us 3 years, and it actually did not go so well. And so I was in the middle of trying to, like, while we're trying to, keep everybody busy and making sure we're adding value, also trying to figure out this new production technology strategy as to how we were going to go forward. And that whole thing, I mean, the thing and what I try to do, and I think this is one of my superpowers, is to basically look at, like, what's happening at the time and then connect the dots and kind of, like, leverage things. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's like, I mean, I could explain it better later, but the ability to just kind of see, like, what would be advantageous for our company, right? And also just for the people as well. And you basically try to find all the positives, and you create a strategy that actually works, continues to do everything that you had pointed out before. Like I said, we had this 3-year project that we already had identified what we needed to get to for this future filmmaking thing. And taking all of that in mind, but then looking at the current landscape and basically saying, oh, wait, okay, wait, hold on a minute. Wait, if we do it this way, then we can make things cheaper. If we do, okay, this one thing we have to build in-house, and really just kind of rejiggering things and just then, of course, passing it by other people to make sure, am I crazy? Does it sound like this sounds reasonable? And that sort of thing. So it's the collaboration that you mentioned earlier that I feel like is you can't do this by yourself. I mean, you really need to yes, you can come up with the ideas, but running it past others and creating that strategy and then communicating it, right? That's the important part, is making sure everyone feels like they're part of the solution.
And intentionally ensuring that everyone feels that they're providing value.
Yes.
And they have value to continue to
That's
provide.
right. That's right. Because that's the thing. It's I think someone said it earlier today. It was you want to create a team, and I love my team, because it's we all have little areas that we're really good at, but we have a lot of areas that we're not very good at, right? But then somebody else actually offsets that. And you bring people together that can, have all these different strengths and weaknesses, and we all learn from each other, and you just push things forward so much faster. And people are always wow, we have to do these bi-weekly updates for our boss and everything. And everyone's always how do you do so much? Because I have a very small team, but we're very mighty, but it's just because we divide and conquer, and we actually don't try to, redo anything. We just make sure that everyone's, there's all this stuff, and we just know people know what to do. And again, back to the trust thing, you trust your people to just get that work done, and we just all pitch in.
Teresa, what are some leadership qualities that you've been leaning on?
I mean, I think the value of communication, that's something that I think helps me, and it helps my team. And I was just thinking about, one of the things we're going through right now is we're potentially buying a company at the same time we're potentially spinning off a company, and that's a really turbulent time for people. And, I am privy to a lot of information that, can't be communicated, but what I do try to do is communicate as much as I can, and as frequently as I can. And I was thinking back to, everybody probably knows I was at MGM before the big MGM sale, and I remember at the time I was told by the leadership team, okay, you have to come up with a plan for transition, and you have to you have to come up with when you're going to basically lay off everybody on your team, but you're not allowed to talk to anyone. Everything has to be secret. And I went back to my office and I said, you know what? I'm talking to everybody, because it just doesn't make sense. Why we knew we were all going to get laid off, right? Some people had different needs. Why not let the people that wanted to stay on and work for a 12-month transition stay on and work for 12 months? Why do I have to keep that a secret? And I think what's different now, because, by the way, that was many years ago, almost 20 years ago, now I see that management is really valuing the employee more. And one of the positive sides is that we get a lot of support for more communication, because it's not just me, right? It's our whole leadership team trying to make sure that they're connecting and telling the employees as much as we can, right? And I just see that big change, and I do think the pandemic helped with that. I think, employees are more valued now, and it's okay to talk about that. It's okay to talk about things like mental health. We really didn't do that before.
I love the fact that you're so transparent, too, by the way. I actually, not at Universal, this was a previous company, but I was actually told I was too transparent. And, oh, yes. Oh, yeah, no. I mean, and that is my style, right? And and of course, I also was told that my leadership style was also sucked. So, but it's all right.
I love
it's
your
okay.
leadership
I know
style,
it's better.
Erin.
I know it's better than that person's, so, it's fine. But yeah, no, but I thank you.
That's fine.
Thank you. Oh, that's so nice.
Gotta believe in yourself, baby.
Yeah, no, it's, that's a whole other story. We can go into that another day. But I mean, that actually wasn't great during that time period, by the way. And I actually did not know myself, and I lost confidence in myself. But that's a different story. Let's not talk about that. I learned better. But I mean, I think it is interesting because I always, I'll factor in being transparent. But yeah, I've been told that, there are times when you just don't want to be, because there's things you have to keep, like that sort of thing. But I think it's interesting that you decided to tell people.
I try to just work around the rules when I can, you know. I don't know, I just think I value my team. I trust them, they trust me, so I just really, try to find the information that they need. I mean, obviously, I don't want to give anyone false hope or false information.
Yep.
But I think
But
it
that
really
probably
helps.
helped them, right?
Yeah, it helps.
For
And
the
it helps
transition.
build that trust too, which
Yeah.
is critical.
Yep.
Cindy, what are your thoughts about the critical leadership skills?
Well, I completely 100% agree with Teresa. Like, I think bad stuff happens. I mean, we were talking about good things that happen. Bad things happen, and as management, we have to deal with it, right? I think the way you get through that is trust, as transparent as you can be. And there are times there's stuff you can't share, right? M&A especially, you cannot share until it's firm. There's real ramifications. But if they know you're sharing, if people know you're sharing as much as you can, and they know what's going to happen, and they know you're going to tell them, it's a whole different ballgame. And I do think the only way you build trust is through complete transparency. And, again, to the point that you can, and that the more you do that and the more often you do that, the more your team and your company are going to come with you. And I live that way, and I know many of you very, very closely. I know we all do that. I mean, I feel the same way about the truth on projects or anything, right? Like, the sooner you are clear about what's happening and, you're transparent, you really, good or bad, build transparency and trust, because they know you're going to tell them. So they don't, worry that you're keeping some big secret from them. So I'm 100% with what Teresa said.
So uncertainty, has happened in recent years, but we're also facing, from a tech perspective, the world of AI.
Yep.
And there's uncertainty that we have in front of us. For those that are here with us in the room today, and online, what do you think, and Davida, maybe we can start with you. What do you think is like what leadership skills do you think are critical for us to be able to advance and further our careers with all the change that we have coming in the tech space?
First of all, I love AI. I love I love ChatGPT. I love all of these things. They're within limits. I love technology. I embrace all of it. But I think that there is a lot of change coming. There has been a lot of change. And if you don't know that you've been tracked and that AI is already here, then, guess what? You are being tracked and AI is already here. And I see a lot of that, being in my environment, a lot of the research that's going on. They're seeing and they're testing and they're doing all these things, there's computation, et cetera, on what's happening before it actually hits the market. And so I'm privy to understanding like things that actually could happen in the market. I think the best way to prepare for it is to learn as much as you can, no matter what your role is. You don't have to be the head person over a tech organization. You don't even have to be in tech to go and learn about these technologies and prepare yourself for what's to come. I think also getting yourself exposed to forums like this or other forums that are talking about these things. They're talking about it in, PMI. They're talking about it in, other non-technical environments, and, go to those things, learn about those things. I was really happy and glad to see that the Biden, what Biden has done and saying there has to be some control around AI, because you do want something, you want to be able to point to something. What is happening now, we don't know. I mean, we really don't know what really is ethical AI, but what we can do is be conscious around the types of uses for AI. But the first thing is really learning about it. Again, you do not have to be in a leadership position in technology to do that. There's a lot that's on YouTube. There's a lot within, there's like a University of Texas actually now has an AI master's degree program. It's $10,000, so if anyone wants to go do it, it's pretty inexpensive. Have your company pay for it. But It's but again, embrace it, embrace the good uses of it, have conversations around it, have a strategy around it. If you're in HR, there's a lot of AI-enabled tools that can help you with the types of things you want to do or any other field. So, again, I just say embrace it, learn a lot about it, and be in favor of the conversations on how to use it for good.
Yeah, leaning into it, arming yourself with information, that's huge.
Yeah, because I think going back to the people thing, right? The first thing that people do when they see something new is they fear it, right? It's just because it's new. Oh my God, it's weird and scary. But I mean, the idea here is like you're saying is like just get over that fear, though. And I think it's funny. I'm excited about AI because I think it's going to be really helpful from a tool set. I think for creatives, it's going to be like this wonderful way for them to pre-visualize things ahead of time, and they can kind of make decisions earlier, which would be really great. But besides that, it's like I'll just say it here. It's like I do. This is my personal, not universal, but my personal feel is like people can basically take on the use of AI as a tool to basically use it for their advantage and leverage it. And I think I'm not scared of AI as of today with classical computing because I feel like the AI always is going to need a human to kind of guide it and stuff. So I want people to just understand it's like don't be afraid. Now when quantum computing comes, that might be a little scary, but I think right now it's like, yeah, if you can just get over the hump and the fear of it, just like it's just going to be like the internet. It's going to be pervasive. It's going to be here. Learn more about it, leverage it, use it for your advantage. Help you not have to do all those manual, horrible, boring things that you want to do.
And I want to add on to what you're saying too, because a lot of people think, well, my job might go away when AI comes. That's why you want to learn. That's why you want to understand what it does, so that you can understand where your job is going or the types of things you want to do, and to kind of answer the other question about the leadership quality. I think stability is important to give your teams, and that's what I mean by that is things are going to change in life. There's a lot of moving pieces of just what we're going through in the world, and if you are able to give them some sort of stability, and that means planning ahead, planning for things that might happen. If you have to cut people or you have to cut your funding, think about that a year before it gets there. Think about what if scenarios so that you can create a stable environment for the people who are there. They are, FTEs are precious commodity, precious things to have and people to have. And so I would say that is a very important thing to provide, to have it within your environment.
Yeah, looking ahead and having a strategy to factor that in, right? And I mean, with any new technology, there's always been sort of this reduction in these jobs, but then there's all these new jobs, right? It's these opportunities. And so that's the thing as a leader is really trying to look for those opportunities and help your people through it.
I love that. So we are at time. So Cindy and Teresa, I knew that we could keep talking all day. Did you have any closing thoughts on leading through the change that we have ahead of us?
So this is maybe slightly unrelated, but something Davida and Annie said made me think of it. I talk to a lot of young people because of STEM Advantage and other things. And I do think the remote workforce, even if it's part-time remote, I think does impact younger people in their careers more than it does people who are comfortable professionally, and that they feel like they're not comfortable asking, oh, you're working on that project, what are you doing, can I help? Like that, if you're Zoom call to Zoom call, which was my remote experience, right? I'd wake up at whatever, and I was in till the last one ended, and I never ate or went to the bathroom. It's just was horrid. And so if you're in that environment, it does change what what your opportunities are. And I would say, you know, you talked about how you deal with people. I think you should really think about where people are in their careers and understand that they maybe don't know how to talk about the opportunities they want, and they don't see what's happening the same way, so that you give them opportunities. Because the way we all grow is from doing something that's a stretch, right? And, you know, just be more conscientious about that.
That's so important, because when they are in Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, they're only going to the meetings associated to the project
What they're
that's
doing
been
already.
assigned.
Yes.
Yeah, so they don't know the other projects that are
Right.
around them, and they don't have that opportunity to grow because they don't have exposure to what else is happening.
Yeah, and I
So
don't think they
important.
don't necessarily, I think any of us would just say, hey, we heard this, we want to do that, but, you know, but you're 24, you're not necessarily going to do that as comfortably.
Teresa?
Yeah, I mean, I would just close out by talking, and it's really what you're talking about also, is the value of community, organizations like this, where you know, we've had a lot of people talk today about your own personal board of directors. And it goes to what you're saying as well. There's so much that you can gain from personal interaction and from listening to other people's stories and sharing your pain points and asking for advice. So
Most of us get our jobs through our networks, right? Like, your networks are everything in my mind, and, you know, I'm a big fan of joining every organization that's a professional organization. You know, my network's everything, right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's what I would leave off with.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you for joining us today on this session. We have
Yes.
Vanessa.
Yes, Vanessa's coming
she
up.
is.
Come on
Okay.
up. Walk up to the stage.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Christina. That was amazing. You all are fabulous. That was another great, candid conversation based in realness. We love it.